Tonight on land speculation, well, it's still going down in Iran, where the bombs continue to rain and chaos continues to flare, both within the borders of the nation of Iran and seemingly across all of its neighbors. And Donald Trump is demanding now an unconditional surrender from the Iranians, and they are saying no. And so we are girding in for a bit of a fight to continue here in the coming days. And the economy is melting down and all that kind of stuff here. Look at the pretty pictures of bombs going off over Tehran, and what a scene on the other side of the world. And tonight on Land Speculation, we're going to dig in and talk a little bit more about it because a lot has transpired since we last went live.
Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack. This is land. That ain't just speculation. That's something we just can't keep. Quack, 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 quack.
Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack.
Honk, 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 honk. Give us your money.
That would be weird.
Ha, 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 ha. Ha, 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 ha. Let's see. I eat bars of soap for breakfast. I love bars of soap. After midnight, things get weird. Quack, quack,
Oh no. Oh no.
let it go, let it go. Cock.
I like that one.
Quack, 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 quack. Come on, ducks.
All right, and welcome to Land Speculation Live on YouTube, where it is I guess I didn't really think about the adjective. It is a Friday night, and we are at war, but there's also some silly stuff going on. The World Baseball Classic kicked off tonight, which was very exciting. If you didn't watch any of that, that's going down. Right on the heels of the Olympics here, and right in the lead up to March Madness and the Masters and regular baseball season and the World Cup. And so there is a lot of entertainment to distract us here in the coming days and weeks. Not to mention, there is a giant war brewing in the Middle East, which we're going to talk about tonight. And I don't know, maybe make some parallels to some sillier stuff too. So Michael, or Jeanette is, I guess, first. Michael Frankowiak is second, and Reggie third. Lurky fourth. Nightbot is in the mix too. Congratulations, you guys are all somewhere in the vicinity of the medal stand here on Land Speculation. And YouTube. Reggie says, go Irish. All right, we're a little bit from the beginning of college football season. We're going to dig in with more college football content soon, Reggie. So don't be alarmed that we are just talking about, oh, I don't know, like the biggest regional war that's hit the world in many decades. But we are, because that's what's in the news right now. So we got to talk about the stuff, and so we're going to do it. Michael Frankovich says, not even a war. We'll talk about it. If you guys wouldn't mind dropping a like or a subscribe in the video as we get out of the gate here tonight, I appreciate it. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check our description for the link to our Discord, our Duck Fund, and our sister channel, LANDCasts International. I was trying to make sure I got all the phrasing on everything right there. What's going on, guys? How are you guys feeling about all this by now? I feel like most people kind of don't care at this point. And it's one of these things where it's like, it's a little bit murky because we're bombing the crap out of Iran. They're bombing all their neighbors. It's interesting that Iran has chosen not to like retaliate against us per se, but more to retaliate against all of its neighbors who really didn't do anything. And it's kind of pissing them off. So that's kind of been the week. And, you know, normally it's like just a straight up, like everybody's got a really definitive opinion about everything. And I don't know, it feels like a lot of people are kind of, and some people are kind of on the Iranian side here. There's a lot of people who are like, it's good that we're bombing Iran, but like, what's the end game here? And so we'll talk a little bit about some of that. I mean, we talked a lot about the last time we came on about, what some prospective end games are. Here are some end pitfalls. I don't know, we got some little bit more intel about what may come out of this conflict that we can talk about as we move along here. So this is the Middle East. These are the countries, the players involved, and so at this hour we are following a whole bunch of different trackers on everything that's going down in Iran. And there's a lot going down in Iran. And I mean, quite literally a lot, like going down, like bombs falling on Iran. Many, many, many bombs falling on Iran. And there are reports of lots of large-scale strikes. The trackers keep reporting new things every few minutes. There's new stuff. And right now, there are loud explosions heard over cities across Iran because America is bombing them. The cities of Qom, Karaj, and Tehran. New airstrikes hitting Tehran right now. Several loud explosions in the Kohak neighborhood of Tehran's 22nd district. There are reports of explosions at the Shahid Datshib International Airport in Shiraz. Lots of bombs. Some bombs falling all over Iran. We're going to makes a little bit of sense here of everything that we're trying to do with some of those bombs. Michael says George H.W. Bush's war is kind of like this one so far, but I guess it could get more serious. Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the bombing, actually, like the second Iraq war was a little more effective than the first one, but depends on what your end game is with the war. Dodger fan, thanks for stopping by in the chat. We're not on to Dodger season yet. Right now, we're doing a World Baseball Classic season. So the Americans had a good night tonight, pounding Brazil, but so did Japan. Japan won 13-0. The Dominican Republic won. So we'll see what comes of all that. It's good to see baseball back on the television, though. So Iran is raining down with bombs. Some of that looks like this. We're getting a little bit more interesting footage coming out of Iran. I guess today specifically, it feels like there's a little more interesting footage coming out of Iran. of some of these explosions. Yeah, I mean, kind of terrifying stuff. They had rolling blackouts across Iran, like the whole country was blacked out. And people are just kind of terrified, and nobody really likes being bombed, but nobody really likes their government there either. I mean, I guess some people do, but a lot of people don't like their government in Iran. And so, being like in the middle of an active war zone is not particularly fun for everyone and is kind of stressful. Sometimes when I'm in DC, there will be like a bunch of random loud explosions, and I can never really tell what's going on. Sometimes you can't tell if like somebody's doing like work on their condo. Sometimes you can't tell if like a truck is driving over like a rough spot in the street, or if like the city's being bombed by a foreign adversary. And that can be a little stressful when you don't know exactly what's going on. But rooftop photos, it's kind of like watching the fireworks on the 4th of July as bombs rain down across key targets in the city of Tehran and other cities across Iran. Now, the Iranians are claiming ever more that the U.S. is bombing civilian areas. The U.S., of course, is not. And we'll talk about some of the targeted areas that the U.S. is going after here. Look at this. Yeah, more footage here. U.S., of course, claiming, I guess, demanding an unconditional surrender now from the Iranians, which is not going to come, by the way. Donald Trump seems to want the Iranians to operate like a sort of rational entity here that will bend to his will, and that's just not how the Iranians are going to go. And that's why this endgame is going to be really hard to achieve. But it is pretty interesting because the Americans seem to be bombing a lot at the sunrise and the sunset. Getting some very pretty pictures of some very ugly cities and a lot of horrific explosions amid a very pretty sunset or sunrise. And here's some more images. People, I guess, a lot of people standing on rooftops over there, watching bombs rain down and the aftermath of explosions. I'm sure it smells like smoke everywhere as the Iranians watch their government get decimated here. And then some vertical cell phone cams, which are harder to put into slides, but some images there, some dusky bombing situations. And it's always hard to tell when these images are from very far away. Something's blowing up there. I can't read any of the text, but yeah, I mean, these are some of the images coming out of Iran. This was like a pretty intense one. This is pretty recent. This was just a few hours ago. At that air base I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I named it. But the Americans like dropping bombs on planes which were parked outside at the air base and trying to decimate Iran's military capabilities, certainly Iran's airspace capabilities. And they just like dropped a bomb and like obliterated this plane. Poor airplane. I mean, they took out like the whole front part of the airplane. Now it's just like a couple of. I remember when I was growing up, I had a pet lizard, I had a pet cat. I had a pet cat. Well, I did have a pet lizard, but mostly I had a pet cat. And then a separate time, a lizard that was not my pet lizard snuck into the house, and I heard a whole bunch of commotion upstairs. And so I ran upstairs and I went to go like see what the hell was going on, because sometimes the cat gets up to stuff. And I found in the kitchen a bit of a scene. And the scene was the cat was looking at me with like a Cheshire cat grin. And the cat also was looking at me with a lizard leg in its mouth. And somewhere on the kitchen floor I found the body of a lizard that was it was missing its front left leg, its front right leg, its back left leg, its back right leg, and its tail. Because my cat had eaten every limb off of this lizard except for the trunk of its body. The lizard now became more like a submarine, sort of like an eel. And it was in bad shape. And there was nothing I could do to save that lizard at that point, but it was a little traumatizing. Something sort of the opposite of that has happened to this plane, where the whole trunk of this plane is gone, but the wings and the tail of the plane are still there. there's more of that going on at these air bases across Iran. Look at this. More planes just singularly being targeted and obliterated by, I don't know if this was drones or missiles or what, but this is like the precision of what the American military is able to do on some of these things there in Iran. Look at that. And then sites all over Iran. Here is the Ayatollah's residence and presidential complex. We talked about this the other day. America went after the presidential complex, the government buildings, and you can see what they look like there on the left. And if you look really closely, you squint hard, you can see that America, in a very targeted way, went after some of these installations and basically nailed them. And as we know, killed the president and a bunch of killed the Ayatollah and a bunch of the Ayatollah's family, and blew up his office and all that kind of stuff. So America certainly did their preparations here and has been going in and just blowing up all kinds of targeted stuff with the intent to take out both the government and the missile launching capabilities. I'm reading the comments here. Yeah, interesting comments, guys. Dodger fan has a third nipple. All right. Well, there's the judiciary complex that America blew up in central Tehran. Used to be, I guess, courts and stuff like that, and now is just a pile of rubble. And then this is the headquarters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps there on the left. I guess that's where they did training and stockpiled stuff, and I don't know, whatever you do at the headquarters of a Revolutionary Guard. And then America just went in and bombed it all. So it's kind of been obliterated into smithereens there on the right. And so the Iranian government continues to be obliterated. There's National Defense University, which I guess trained people into the military. That's all kind of been obliterated there. Classrooms and whatnot. Yeah, look at that. Here are some of the people that were taken out by the Americans. So this is the chain of command within the Iranian government. The Ayatollah Khomeini was taken out. The head of the security forces was taken out. I guess the deputy chief of staff has not yet been. The head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has been killed, but not the head of Iran's General Armed Forces or the head of their law enforcement command. The Iranian Defense Council's senior advisor was killed. The defense minister, the head of the military bureau, the military intelligence chief, and the head of defense innovation and research, all killed. All killed. Did you see Nintendo is suing the U.S. government? I did not see that. Why is Nintendo suing the head of the U.S. government? Or suing the U.S. government? U.S. and Israel, I assume they're coordinated. I don't know, Michael. I would assume this is all pretty coordinated. It seems like they had a plan in place here. Seems like somebody drew up a plan pretty quickly, and they've just been working on it. So Trump's going to try to put somebody in charge of Iran. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know if Trump really knows exactly what his plan is, or if he's just trying to kind of figure it out on the fly here. But so far, they've taken out a lot of the government. They also, unfortunately, have taken out and damaged some pretty historic sites. You know, it's said about World War II, of all the things that Adolf Hitler did that were truly monstrous, the one thing that that the Nazis didn't do during World War II was to take out some of the historic sites across Europe, and I guess certainly the Germans could have bombed the crap out of Paris as historic landmarks, and they really didn't. And that, I guess, is one saving grace of that war. And yet here we are in Iran, and this famous palace that dates back to like the 1400s has had pretty extensive damage during the American bombings. Of course, Iran's government was using it, so America had to, inflict some damage on this historic palace. And so that's not so great, but it looks like it's possibly salvageable if you get the right historic preservationist in there to figure out what to do about it. Iran has a lot of history to it. I heard today that the city of Nineveh, which I guess I'm trying to figure out if I think that's in Iraq, the city of Nineveh, but something about Nineveh was bombed, and I was thinking, boy, when I was in the third grade, I had to be in the Jonah and the Whale play. You guys know this, the story of Jonah and the whale from the Bible. This guy Jonah ends up he gets eaten by a whale because he runs from God, and the whale swallows him up, and then he has to do his penance, and I don't know, somehow he has to go to the city of Nineveh. God's telling him to go to the city of Nineveh and make the citizens of Nineveh repent because the citizens of Nineveh were all gluttonous and bad. And Jonah refuses and ends up being in the belly of a whale. And anyway, I was in that play, and I was a citizen of Nineveh. I was a citizen of Nineveh in a play, and that meant I had to dress in like really gaudy clothing because I was supposed to be like gluttonous and bad. And Jonah was supposed to come and like preach the word of the Lord to me and make me better. And I remember wearing like very ugly clothing, like a very ugly orange shirt and green pants and like a big sparkly golden hat, a top hat, waiting for Jonah to come and teach me the way. But I was a citizen of Nineveh, and now Nineveh's getting bombed, and I don't know if Nineveh's getting bombed as punishment for being bad and gluttonous. But it was interesting. You're seeing some of these like very, very biblical things coming up in this war. But hopefully we can salvage some of these historic sites, because that's not so good that we're bombing the crap out of historic sites. So there are efforts, I guess, to map where all this is raining down over the nation of Iran. A lot of bombing in Iran itself, over the capital city of Tehran, and then various sites across the country, and then the neighbors across UAE, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, Cyprus, Syria, all getting bombed by mostly by the Iranians out of this. The Israelis seem to be bombing the crap out of Lebanon right now, but everybody else is kind of getting bombed by the Iranians, which is pissing them off as Iran just tries to puke out all of its missiles all over its neighbors. And that has created a widening Middle East crisis in which all of these other countries now have to be involved kind of against their will. They weren't really behind this, and now here they are. They're pulled into it because they're getting their stuff bombed. And therefore they need missile interceptors from the United States. Iran is trying to exhaust all of the missile interceptors that America can have and produce and give to people. And that's part of Iran's strategy to try to wear down America, and it doesn't really seem to be working. Iran's capability to shoot missiles seems to be diminished, and everyone else's ability to shoot down missiles seems to be increasing. And so the daily number of things that seem to be landing in other countries seems to be diminishing, although it is still there, and every day there seems to be a whole bunch of crap that's landing all over some of these other countries. Now, proportionally, America is, we're winning. We're winning this war militarily, as in we're dropping a hell of a lot more bombs on Iran and Tehran and other parts of Iran, and then Israel and Lebanon. More bombs have been dropped on Tehran itself alone, by far, than any of these other countries that Iran has been bombing. So there's a lot of reporting coming out about all the stuff that's been hitting the UAE, like Abu Dhabi and Dubai and stuff like that. But overwhelmingly, America has been bombing Iran way more than they've been bombing anybody else. So over 300 strikes on the country of Iran so far, 69 on Lebanon. Israel's gotten some action from Iran. Then Iraq, the UAE, and Bahrain taking the brunt of the Iranian numbers, but pretty small numbers on the grand scale of things by the Iranians. Spyman calming the chaos. Good to see you guys popping into the chat here. As always, we're just doing a little bit of a roundup here on everything that's going down in Iran in the last few days. While I'm also reading your comments, various stuff. What are the consequences of Iran hitting NATO states? Can they get bombed more than they are now? Maybe a third country could fill the gap in bombs. I think they're getting bombed plenty right now. I mean, I don't know. Like, there seem to be a lot of bombs falling on Iran right now. We do have a lot. We do have a lot of planes and a lot of bombs right now. We seem to have a pretty big supply of that kind of stuff, and we got a lot of defense contractors that are perfectly happy to keep restocking the coffers here if we can do it quickly enough. So there's Israel. There's some of these missiles firing down, and then Israel's trying to shoot them down. I guess that's the moon up there. Man, being in one of these places where just bombs are raining down over your head all the time and you're counting on your government to shoot them down, it's terrifying. Dubai is like a tourist mecca, and they've been getting drone strikes from the Iranians. It's kind of scary. I know people like in Dubai. I myself was in Dubai for a bit. The U.S. consulate targeted by an Iranian drone. Large fire underway. Yeah, stuff like right in the middle of the city in Dubai is getting hit. It's kind of terrifying. This is an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia is getting hit. Another one. There's a lot of oil refineries in Saudi Arabia, believe it or not. They make a lot of oil in Saudi Arabia. And yeah, so, you know, I don't know. You fire a missile at like an oil refinery. That seems like that could be pretty dangerous. Make a pretty big explosion. And that's I mean, it looks big, it looks bad, but I would think there'd be a lot more fire. I don't know. I'm thinking you drop a bomb on like a gas station. You think you make a big explosion. Oil refineries have even more oil than that. And then there's the Dubai airport, which is the busiest airport in the world. There were reports of a strike at the Dubai airport today. These people, they have like very. You know, one of the things about international airports is there's like a lot more fine shopping. Like the shops in airports internationally, especially the big international hubs. It's like you've got Gucci and Chanel and like who's buying like fancy jewelry and bags and stuff at the airport. Like at American airports, it's like McDonald's and like the Hudson News. Internationally, it's always these like, you know, 5-star, really expensive, ritzy stores. Burberry. Maybe it's just the international hubs, but it does seem like the shopping at international airports tends to be really, really, really fancy. But the Dubai airport is getting affected by this a lot. I mean, I know a lot of people fly into and out of Dubai constantly. And it is a kind of a nightmarish airport to fly into because it's just so enormous. But flights at the Dubai airport have been affected quite substantially. A lot of canceled flights. Basically, half of the flights that have been canceled anywhere have been out of the Dubai airport. And so it is kind of messing up the whole global flight situation, among other impacts of this war. 3,000 plus flight cancellations at the Dubai airport. So they don't really want that to continue. America, for its part, well, we've been bombing a lot of these underground installations in Iran. So in addition to bombing all the government sites and trying to kill all the government people in Iran, a big part of what we have been trying to do is basically bomb all of these bunkers where they have all their missiles. Because Iran decided a couple years ago, for some reason, that the best thing to do with their missiles would be to put them in what they call missile cities, which are deep underground, basically just like heavily secured subway stations full of missiles deep underground. And you can see these are the Iranian guard people showcasing these fancy stations where they have all their missiles going back a ways. And so they would like have these things underground. And here's some more images of what that looks like. They just put big piles of them in these tunnels. And I guess the premise was the tunnels are deep underground, so it would be harder for the Americans to hit. The downside is when you have a bunker like that, you can't really very easily move these things. And so if America does figure out how to bomb these things, you can take out a lot of missiles very quickly, and Iran has very limited ability to move the missiles. Now, these things are like deeper underground than these are things that are like deeper underground than most American bombing can reach. It's just a little bit out of reach. But for Iran to be able to use any of these missiles, they got to take them above ground. And so that's been the crux of the American strategy here, has been find the times when the Iranians are getting ready to take these missiles above ground, and as soon as they get above ground, just monitor them and then bomb the smithereens out of them. And so a lot of what America's been doing is just circling drones over these cavernous bases where Iran stores all of its underground missiles. And so we just sort of hover a drone around, monitoring the situation. Then the second that Iran starts to try to bring a missile launcher to the surface, the second that it emerges out of the tunnels, America just basically has heavy bombers drop munitions on the sites, basically entombing the Iranian weapons below ground and creating like a permanent sort of underground grave site for these missiles. Which I guess is a creative approach, unless somebody's able to eventually figure out how to get the missiles back out of the ground. But these are some of the sites where America has been just bombing these underground missile sites. And as part of that, America is trying to basically make the tunnel entrances unusable so that nobody can actually get to the missiles and nobody who was down there can get out, like trapping people underground in these missile chambers, which seems like a pretty brutal way to die, trapped deep underground in a bunker with a whole bunch of missiles that you can't get out of. And then here's more imagery of that. It's all like satellite imagery. But you gotta take their word for it a little bit of what we're bombing. But it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me what we're doing, because Iran's been kind of erratic, just bombing the crap out of its neighbors with these missiles. So you want to destroy the missile launching capabilities as quickly as you can. But somewhere deep under Iran someday, people are going to find these old missiles. And then there's the actual nuclear stuff. This was like a big crux of this war, is the actual nuclear sites within Iran. Things like the Natanz enrichment complex, where Iran has been like enriching uranium for 10,000 years trying to build nuclear weapons. And the problem with places like this is that while we know where the site is, you got to like drill down pretty far to actually get to the nuclear stuff, because the centrifuge for the nuclear development is like 145 meters underground, which means basically you take a giant elevator, you got to ride like an elevator for like 10 minutes deep into like the deep like into the core of the earth. And we just don't have any, like there aren't bombs really powerful enough to get through 145 meters of underground stuff. And so if you really want to take out the nuclear stuff, I guess in theory you'd have to like send people down the elevator. But since we don't want to put people on the ground, we got to figure out a way to like burrow our bombs deep into the ground. It's like a dentist that's got to do a root canal. You got to dig deep into the ground, like down into some tunnel, and then figure out a way to blow up the stuff from there. So I don't know what we do about that. I mean, I guess there are people getting paid to figure this out, but If the intent really is to take out the nuclear facilities here in Iran, it's not as simple as just find them and bomb them. We just like they're designed in a way to kind of be unbombable. And it's kind of unclear now, like if the Iranian government becomes a crap show, like who's going to take over all the nuclear stuff? Like that's kind of freaky. You don't quite know who's going to really be in charge of all the nuclear stuff there in Iran. So that's a challenge for us. Spider bot. There's spider bot inside. Open the door. Yeah, yeah. So Iran doesn't have a whole lot of options here. I mean, they're just trying to kind of wait America out and hope we get tired of the war. That's what a lot of countries do. They know that Americans will eventually tire of war, and so they just got to hang on for as long as they can. And if you're willing to like put up with crap, sometimes countries can do that. One of Iran's tools that they are using is by blocking the Straits of Hormuz, which we talked about that. That's that little oil choke point thing in the Persian Gulf, where they basically just try to like block off this little section of waterway so that any of the oil tankers that are getting oil out of Saudi Arabia to ship to the rest of the world can't get out. And that has very, very, very significantly slowed the traffic in the Straits of Hormuz over the course of the last several days, which is driving oil prices through the roof. And you might be wondering, like, how can Iran block a waterway like that? This is what it usually looks like as giant oil tankers just sail through the Straits of Hormuz. So you might be wondering, like, why can't we just, like, plow our naval vessels through there? Our Navy's more powerful than Iran's. Why don't we just plow through there and, make space for these oil tankers? Well, what Iran has done that is really annoying is they have put a whole bunch of underground mines in the Straits of Hormuz, and a whole bunch of different kinds of like land mines in the Straits of Hormuz to detect when ships are coming through, and then they can try to blow up all the ships. So I'm not an expert in making mines, but there are moored mines, drifting mines, limpet mines, and bottom mines, which affix to the surface areas of the side of the straits, or float in the water, or are tethered to the seafloor, and they explode when they come into contact with passing ships. So it's like a little booby trap. You just float a mine in the water, and then the ship eventually hits it, and then it blows up the ship. Sometimes they will attach mines directly to the hull of ships, and sometimes they will affix it in the seafloor within shallow water to detect ships and then blow them up as they come through. So ships don't really want to get blown up, and so they're not traveling through the Straits of Hormuz anymore. This is what that strait looked like in terms of shipping traffic a few days ago before this war really kicked off. You had lots of ships going left and lots of ships going right, and they were coming and going back and forth, shipping oil from the Persian Gulf all over the world. And then the war starts, and Iran starts popping these mines into the Straits of Hormuz, and now here's what it looks like. Only one brave ship traveling to the left that is willing to try to make its way through the Straits of Hormuz. So almost everybody is scared off, and there are big piles of ships deep in the annals of either side of the Persian Gulf. Let's see what's going on here. Is YouTube penalizing us for using the word war in our title? Should we change that? Raise your hand if you're here, guys. Something's always a little bit off when I'm tracking our numbers here. Something's always a little bit off when I'm getting stats like 2 concurrent viewers on the entire video. That doesn't sound like it's accurate. It says hand raised. Okay, well, I have a device that's watching, and Jeanette is here. So if there's literally anybody else watching, YouTube's giving us crap. I don't think YouTube seems to really not like when we talk about war. Let's see. What if we change the title? We'll change it to Stuff with Iran and see if that helps. If that makes YouTube a little happier. Oh no, now we have 0 concurrent viewers according to YouTube. Man. YouTube says we literally have nobody watching right now. Goodness gracious. Not a single concurrent viewer. I'm watching it. I'm literally watching myself. YouTube says I'm not here. Maybe I died. I mean, YouTube can lie. But YouTube can be very frustrating sometimes. When you put in the effort and then they just jerk you around because they're worried about their advertisers. Jen has 2 devices watching. Okay. So YouTube is just lying about our viewership numbers right now. Like, I'm literally watching the thing, and YouTube is been oscillating between saying we have 0 and 2 people watching for the last several minutes. Sometimes you do the math on the number of concurrents that YouTube says you have, and then the total viewers, and then the average watch time, and sometimes none of it matches up. And it's clear that YouTube has been lying about how many people are watching the stream. It seems to jump erratically all over the place, too, in ways that are clearly not accurate. I don't know. I can't explain YouTube at all. All right, and usually when we do war updates, those actually get decent like after the fact views. Lurky's not. Yeah, because Lurky, when we're doing like war stuff, I'm not even gonna like push the envelope with YouTube. I don't even try to do the monetization when we do war updates, just because I know YouTube finds that to be very, very, very. They don't like it. They don't like it when you try to monetize videos that deal with controversial issues, anything that deals with like violence, things like that. And so, we're trying to be like very, I'm not doing this for the money. And so like, I don't want to piss YouTube off to the point where they get mad at our channel and try to shut us down. And so anything that pushes the envelope on YouTube, I try to like not make them angry. And so if you're not seeing ads, it's because on these videos, specifically the war update videos, I don't turn on the monetization. And so I'm not getting paid for this. So I don't have to care. If I'm getting paid, I feel like I'm on the clock. I gotta do right by everybody. If I'm not getting paid, like why should I even come to work, But I do appreciate you guys being here, and I feel sort of a moral obligation to do it right. Okay, the Straits of Hormuz getting blocked has driven the price of oil through the roof, which is that'll affect gas prices, and that will affect the American economy eventually. I pulled that yesterday; it was at 80, and now it's up to 91.27, at least as of a few minutes ago. And that is a lot higher than it was back in January when it was down at like 55. So oil has really, 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 really skyrocketing. People I assume don't like that. Iran now believes that the U.S.'s goal here is to bring instability and chaos to their country, and that the U.S. is going to ramp things up not just through more bombing, but by arming a variety of separatist groups in the coming days to come sow chaos within Iran. That's probably true. It doesn't seem like it ever goes particularly well when America tries to just start like arming random, potentially violent separatist groups in the Middle East. But we seem to do it a lot, and that ends up getting us into trouble. Like we'll arm some group, they'll take our weapons, and then eventually those weapons will end up getting sold on the black market. And then some bad actor will get our weapons, and then we have to build even more weapons. It's part of the military-industrial complex thing. The highest oil prices have ever been July 2008. Crude oil reached 147.50. That was back in the era when America was very, very dependent on Middle Eastern oil. And one of the amazing things that occurred between 2005 and 2013 is America went from getting virtually all of our oil from the Middle East to getting virtually none of our oil from the Middle East. And it created a huge, huge, huge amount more freedom and reduction in energy prices to not be dependent on Middle Eastern oil. And that was due to the unlocking of American, drilling capabilities. It was also due to these new technologies, shale oil, fracking, all these things that environmentalists disparage basically helped to democratize energy around the world, which meant that all kinds of countries discovered new sources of oil, natural gas, and other kinds of energy. And suddenly people were not as dependent on Saudi Arabia and Russia. It's one of the great things that's happened, like in the last several decades, one of the great things that's happened. And so oil hasn't been close to that in a long, long, long time. But right now oil is skyrocketing. So yeah, we're gonna start arming a whole bunch of rebel groups. Our military is kicking ass, but we are pretty transparently not interested in putting troops on the ground because we're deathly afraid of this becoming another Iraq situation if we do. And so instead of putting our troops on the ground, we're going to put other troops on the ground. And Iran is girding in for a long war of that kind of thing. And they're going to try to outlast us. The first group that America is arming here is the Kurds. The Kurds, who always seem to come up in this kind of thing, do so in part because the Kurds occupy a bunch of territory that is not a country. The Kurds are kind of splattered all over the map here. They have kind of control land in Turkey, Syria, Iraq, parts of Iran. I don't know, kind of all over the Middle East. You hear about the Kurds. And so there are 30 to 40 million people who declare themselves Kurds. And America just armed several thousand Kurdish fighters who are now going to go into Iran and try to sow chaos on our behalf. This whole war is a bit of an experiment. I don't know what happens. You give them a whole bunch of American weapons to a bunch of Kurdish fighters and tell them to go in and just topple the Iranian government, but that's kind of what we're trying to do right now because there's only so much we can do from the air. It is a little chaotic. We don't seem to have a very clear end game in mind here, and while we are dominating militarily, I don't know what that leads to. Nobody really seems to quite know, including Trump at this point. Americans don't seem to like it. Just 1 in 4 Americans approve of the Iran strikes. Republicans mostly approve of the Iranian bombing thing. 55% approve and 13% disapprove among Republicans. Among Democrats, only 7% approve of America going in and bombing Iran. The House passed a meaningless bullshit resolution yesterday to declare Iran the world's leading state sponsor of terror. 52 Democrats voted against declaring Iran a terrorist state, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who seems to just sort of oppose anything that America does. I don't get it. Like I mean, there are people out there that are living in like a sort of delusional fantasy world in which the only evil in the world can be America, and nothing is real. Everything can be accomplished through like tweets and virtue signaling, and that happens when people get like live a life that is very, very, very much removed from reality. And you live in privilege, and that's what you get. Um, Cottage cheese has curds. That's true. It does have cottage cheese has curds. Jeanette says cottage cheese is gross, and Jeanette is wrong. So America's like not really on board with this war. Interestingly, a big portion of the population thinks that Donald Trump has like just been like too mean to Iran here. 87% of Democrats think that Donald Trump has used too much military force on Iran. That we should have tried to defeat Iran here through by just being nicer to them. I don't know, the world of like everything can be accomplished through empathy, the sort of John Lennon universe in which everyone should just be friends and we should all just be nice to each other and there's nothing real in the world, seems to be very. I mean, there's a lot of that percolating. But interesting, a lot of those people also seem to like really, really hate Donald Trump and want to see him suffer some horrendous pain. So I don't know, but like 87% of Democrats think that Donald Trump has used too much military force in Iran. Aggregately, Americans, broadly speaking, seem to think America is using too much military force in Iran. And Donald Trump does seem to be he's going in very heavy-handedly. He wants to bully Iran into submission. Iran will not submit, and therefore we will have to keep bombing them for a while. Seems to be kind of what's going down here. Meanwhile, who needs enemies when you have allies like our allies? Mark Carney in Canada has changed his mind 3 or 4 times about whether Iran is good or bad and whether or not Canada may or may not help or impede or help or impede the whole thing in Iran. Canada said that it was bad, and then they said it was good, and then they said they wouldn't help, but then maybe they would commit forces. Well, they're very, very sort of wishy-washy, non-committal kind of thing there from Canada and Mark Carney. Meanwhile, in the UK, Keir Starmer, the Labour Party Prime Minister, embattled Prime Minister, nobody seems to like him very much in the UK, has been branded weak and indecisive as he makes a humiliating 15th U-turn on Iran. American jets had to fly like a 26-hour round trip in order to go do bombing stuff in Iran because the British wouldn't let the Americans use one of their bases for a plane to land and refuel. Keir Starmer is very, very concerned about whether or not everything comports with international law, and he doesn't seem to know what he's doing. Like, he doesn't seem to really know what he believes or why he believes it, and he keeps doing various U-turns, and generally you get the shtick from a lot of these people. They're kind of on Iran's side, or so it seems. So Keir Starmer, and then there is Emmanuel Macron in France, who's also, they also didn't let America use their bases for a bit, and then they kind of U-turned, and I don't know, maybe he's having a hard time because the whole Brigitte thing. But man, we've got a lot of feckless world leaders. As Donald Trump said, these people are not Winston Churchill. Keir Starmer is certainly not Winston Churchill. Tess been going into old videos and liking them to upswing the numbers for Lance channel. I appreciate that. And the comments also help on the old videos too, Tess. I really, I mean, you guys are like advocates for our channel, and that is awesome. Like, I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, you guys know what to do, by the way. The like and the subscribe stuff. Those likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you know when we're on. Check the description for the link to our Discord and our Duck Fund, and then Land Ducks International, which is our sister channel. Make sure you subscribe to that channel if you're not already. And yeah, going back and commenting on old videos is always very, very helpful, for sure. So what's the end game here? Well, we don't know. We don't really know how long this is going to take. But the administration seems to not know how long really it's going to take, or quite what the potential end result is here. You'll get different stories from the different times. We still don't really know fully why we did this. I mean, other than the combination of reasons we talked about in the last stream. But are we trying to topple the Iranian government? Are we trying to get them to, do an unconditional surrender to us? Are we trying to get their own people to revolt and take over their government? Like, what exactly is the end game here? I don't know. I mean, at the very least, we will have pretty severely crippled them, I guess. But we're also going to make them very angry. It's going to be a bit of a hornet's nest. And maybe we'll have a whole bunch of little terrorist cells that will emerge from this, and a whole bunch of competing factions, which is probably not the greatest. So how do we get ourselves out of this once we bomb the smithereens out of them? I don't know. But Donald Trump seems very intent that once we do this, once we finish with Iran, whatever finishing with Iran means, I don't think his expectations for negotiating seem to be panning out very much. Seemed like maybe the Iranians wanted to go back to the negotiating table, and then Trump said no. I don't know. Now he wants them to come negotiate, but only if they're going to surrender fully, and they don't seem to want to surrender fully. Hard to tell. But Donald Trump seems pretty intent that once this is all taken care of, then we're going to go to Cuba. Because the one last chess piece on the board, I guess you could go to Taiwan and sort that all out, but the last major chess piece on the board for America to go in and take out a leader and enact regime change is Cuba. And Donald Trump has said it. I think J.D. Vance has talked about it. Lindsey Graham seems to be really salivating for it. But America seems to be very eager to go into Cuba next, once we finish with this. And, if we get Cuba all sorted out, whatever that means. Cuba's been a bit of a thorn in our side, going back to the 1950s. Cuba and Iran are sort of similar situations in a sense, because back in the 40s and 50s in both countries, we were supporting standing regimes in each place that weren't that great, but they were at least relatively pro-American regimes that were kind of oppressing their people a bit. And in both cases, there was a revolution that led to the rise of in Cuba's case, it was communism, or sort of communism in name. And in Iran's case, it was this kind of terrifying state religious thing, death to America cult government they've had now for 50 years. And both have been a thorn in our side for a while. And so once we do Iran, maybe then we'll try to do Cuba. We'll see. We'll see. Cuba, the country that is still living like it's in the 1950s. Cuba, the country that still operates like before Fidel Castro took over, because Fidel Castro cratered many aspects of their economy and tried to have the state take over everything. And to this day, it remains a bit of a dysfunctional country where people have continued to flee Cuba to the United States, and this country that used to be a great vacation destination for Americans isn't. Americans have to, getting a tour of Cuba is really hard, and it's not very pleasant. So maybe the end game of this is we're just going to pivot to Cuba. We'll leave Iran in whatever state we leave it in. It'll be a mess. It'll be a bit of a hornet's nest. bad factional stuff will arise, and maybe it'll be better, and maybe it'll be worse. It's probably the end game for Iran. We talked a little bit about that on the last stream, and I shared a piece that somebody who knows Iran on the ground had written that sort of surmised that that's what was going to happen. But now I guess the end game here is we're really going to pivot our attention to Cuba. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of military-industrial complex forces encouraging Trump to do that. And Cuba offers a bit of a lesson here that sometimes small things have a big impact. So America back in the 1940s, 1950s, I guess we were when Fidel Castro started to rise to power, America was trying to like quietly perform actions that would cause that to not be successful. Fidel Castro did enact like a successful revolution in Cuba, took power, and then for a few years after that, America tried to foment revolutions back against the Castro regime, which all seemed to fail. America went through a litany of embarrassing efforts to try to like poison Castro or blow up Castro or things like that. And one of the things that America did during Castro's early rise is that America tried to shoot off a satellite in Cuba that inadvertently, the satellite launch failed, and the satellite fell to Earth, and it killed a Cuban cow. So America killed a Cuban cow with a failed satellite launch. I believe this was in the 50s. Let me see if I have the details on it pulled up here. I should have done more preparation here. Okay, so I don't have this article. You have to trust me. America killed a cow in Cuba. And this affected Fidel Castro very greatly because Fidel Castro was weirdly obsessed with cows. And so this is actually one of the things that made Fidel Castro really angry at the Americans. And the result is that Fidel Castro became both obsessed with the United States and obsessed with cows. America's failed satellite killing the cow was, to Castro, further evidence of Yankee aggression. He filed a complaint with the United Nations. Hundreds of student protesters demonstrated in front of the American embassy in Cuba, chanting, "With cows or without cows, the revolution will win." America inadvertently killing a cow caused Fidel Castro to gain power in Cuba. The protesters brought several cows and bulls with them as part of the protest, one draped with the following message: "Eisenhower, you murdered one of my sisters." In other words, this Cuban protester had a sister who was a cow. I don't know if that's intended to be literal or if there's like some double entendre going there where the person is both trying to mock Eisenhower and their sister, or quite what's happening there. But the Cubans were very angry that America inadvertently, as part of, America trying to launch a satellite, killed a cow in Cuba. And the result was that we killed a cow and pissed off Fidel Castro, made him hate America, and made him obsessed with cows. In the aftermath of these protests, the U.S. paid Cuba $2 million in compensation for the cow. It's a lot of money for a cow. The payment probably also had something to do with violating the nation's airspace. It's also said that the country gave the cow a state funeral in Cuba. And while we can't find a lot of details on the cow's funeral, Fidel Castro clearly had a known obsession with cows. So-called the first and last time a satellite has been used in the production of ground beef. Get it? Because you kill a cow with a satellite, you make ground beef. Anyway, Fidel Castro sat on this for 30 or 40 years. After America inadvertently killed a cow, Fidel Castro sat on this and he stewed and he stewed and he hated the United States and he continued to like elevate the cow in his mind. And the result was that Fidel Castro desperately wanted Cuba to become the most successful cow country in the world. He wanted to prove to the Americans that his cows were better than ours. He wanted to prove to the world that the Cuban cow would be the greatest cow in the world, and he wanted everyone to worship Cuba's cows. This is a cow. I guess they put, this looks like a stamp. They put a cow on their country stamps. Cuba's not actually really known for cows. This was just a dream that Fidel Castro had because he was mad that America had killed a Cuban cow. And here's the deal. Well, okay, so I guess the CIA tried to poison Castro with a poisoned chocolate milkshake. Which is, so he liked milkshakes. That was part of his cow thing. So he became without cheesing the French. So in 1964, he tried to foist Cuban camembert on a visiting French diplomat. So he kept trying to like make fancy dairy using Cuban cows. And he tried to feed a French diplomat Cuban cheese, and trying to get the French diplomat to admit that Cuban cheese was better than French cheese. Of course, the French are very well known for their cheese. The French diplomat obviously did not agree, since he thought the Cuban cheese was disgusting, certainly relative to French cheese, and gave him a very weird side eye. The Frenchman politely suggested there was a reason Cuba was known for cigars and not for its cheese. Since Castro couldn't achieve total cheese domination, he decided he'd settle for the next best thing, producing more varieties of ice cream in the United States. After ordering 28 cartons of Howard Johnson's ice cream so he could taste each flavor, he decided that Cuba needed its own piece of the ice cream action. How would he accomplish this? He basically started an ice cream parlor, which was very successful, but the ice cream's success depended on the quality of the milk. And so this convinced Fidel Castro that he needed to basically launch what he called the Cuban super cow. So Castro basically went and he imported a whole bunch of cows from Canada. Castro went and imported a whole bunch of cows from Canada. Canada has good cows. But a lot of them died because you put a whole bunch of Canadian cows in the climate of Cuba. They're not really used to that, so they die. So a third of the cows died off due to the climate and insufficient nutrition. Castro, undeterred, decided the best thing to do would be to mate the Cuban cows, or mate the Canadian cows, with native Cuban cows. And he created the love of his life, Ubre Blanca, which means white udder in Spanish. And this is the Cuban super cow. Made the Guinness Book of World Records for the highest milk yield by a cow in one day. 110 liters. He made the cow produce 29 U.S. gallons of milk. When the Cuban cow died in 1985, her body was stuffed and put on display at the National Cattle Health Center as a permanent monument to Castro's milk obsession, and a reminder that sometimes even insane dictators want milk with their kooky. I don't know what that means. This is a weird news source. Anyway, they taxidermied the cow, and now this famous super cow, look at the giant udder on this super cow. You can go see this super cow somewhere deep in the annals of Cuba. Now you may be wondering, why did I go on with this tangent about the Cuban super cow? Well, number one, if America does go in after this conflict is over, we're going to conquer Iran, and eventually we're going to conquer Cuba. We will have two new great tourist destinations for Americans to visit that right now Americans are kind of like afraid to visit. I'm excited to go to Iran and visit the city of Nineveh. And and figure out like what I was really dressing up as when I was 8 years old. But secondarily, I'm excited to go to Cuba and see this taxidermied super cow that Fidel Castro built in the 1980s and subsequently milked to death. I don't know if the cow actually produced more milk than any cow in the world, or if Fidel Castro just milked the crap out of this cow because he wanted to set the Guinness Book of World Records record. I'm guessing it was the latter. And this poor cow is just like, I can't produce any more frickin' milk today. Stop milking me. And Castro's like, no, we need to set the record. I'm going to milk you until you can't produce milk anymore. And the cow's like, but I'm going to die. And Castro's like, no, just I'm going to keep yanking on your udder until you eventually until you make more milk. And the cow's like, oh God, oh God, oh God, I can't make any more milk. I say this because this all started because America, trying to foment a counter-revolution in Cuba, inadvertently killed a Cuban cow. And in doing so, gave rise not only to Fidel Castro, but Castro's obsession with making this super cow. We're bombing a lot of crap in Iran right now. We're bombing a lot of installations. We're bombing a lot of military stuff. We're bombing a lot of government stuff. At some point in this conflict, America's going to bomb something that we don't intend to. And depending on what we bomb, we got to be a little careful here. The things that we bomb along the way are they're going to be remembered in the minds of the young Iranians that are walking around the streets of Iran today. Somebody who's walking on the streets of Iran today probably is going to be the next Iranian leader, or at least in 30 years is going to be the next Iranian leader. And somewhere in their psyche, there's some 10-year-old walking around Cuba or walking around Iran who's watching these bombs fall in their community. It's a pretty impactful thing. And one of those bombs is gonna fall. It's gonna hit something within their community. That's gonna stick in the mind of this kid. And someday, when this kid becomes the head of their country, and they're all bitter at the U.S., whatever we're bombing today is going to be the thing that sticks in their mind. And so, the future of America's relations with Iran, and possibly the whole Middle East, and possibly the entire world, could be quite profoundly affected by the things that we bomb, not intentionally, but inadvertently. We said we were bombing a school. I just hope we aren't bombing cows. Because I was reading about this super cow. I felt very badly for the cow that Fidel Castro milked to death, quite literally. Somewhere in Iran is some animal. It's going to get killed in our bombing. Someday, some future Iranian leader is going to try to make a super version of that thing. Maybe it'll be like the Oryx, the super Oryx. So be a little careful. Careful when you're bombing. There's like a weird siren going off in DC right now. Sounds like some kind of weird warning siren. You guys can hear that in the background. It's a little creepy. Hope we're not getting bombed by the Iranians. You got to be careful when you're at war, because people on the ground are they're very viscerally affected by it. I'm excited to see the super cow though. Someday, we'll finish this war. We'll go to the next war. We'll go liberate Cuba, and we'll make it a vacation destination again. And all of us are going to go see the super cow. All cows take cover. All right. Well, that's what we got. we got to update the chat here. Okay, there we go. There we go. Trump, the president of peace. Well, sometimes you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet, I guess. Holstein cows have very large udders, says Spyman. Apparently, when you mate them with Cuban cows, you can make them have even larger udders somehow. I mean, everybody likes peace, but sometimes there are bad actors out there, and then you got the question of like, do we just let, just in the interest of peace, do we just let them be bad, or in the interest of peace, do we have to go make them be good? There's no easy answer to it. I don't know. How are you guys feeling about all this at this point? You guys think we should still be at war? You guys feeling good about the end game here? I don't know. When we asked the other day, it was a bit of a mixed verdict on all this. If you guys haven't remembered to drop a like and a subscribe on the video, I appreciate it. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. As always, check our description for the link to our Discord, our Duck Fund, and our sister channel, Land Ducks International. Does the live chat have other people? Let's see. Are we missing somebody? Okay, who's our winner here? Our winner here is Awake Not Woke, 1984. Congratulations, Awake Not Woke, 1984. We're doing on the top fans here. Dodger Fan 1. Congratulations to Dodger Fan. You win 150 XP. I don't know what that is, but you win it. Lurky, congratulations. Despite being second, you also win 150 XP. Spyman is third. Snikry Penom Miss is 4. Michael Frankoviak 5. Test Castro 6. Awake Not Woke 7. Calming the Chaos 8. And Reggie 9. Congratulations, guys, for XP. Yeah, Jeanette, I bet that's what they mean. XP means you get extra penises. Well, yes, you're like the prodigal. You're like the prodigal son, awake not woke. You haven't been here in months, and the second you come back, you get rewarded for it. So maybe that, let that be a lesson to us all that people should be here all the time. Tell your friends. Have your whole family sit around the laptop and watch our streams late at night. Prodigal daughter. Okay. Did anybody have anything else like really profound here to say? Anything at all? All right. Well, if not, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to our mods. Thanks to, I guess Jeanette did most of the heavy lifting here tonight. Well, thanks, Jeanette. Thanks for hanging out with us. And congratulations to our winners and our top fans and our medal people. Maybe are we giving out too many prizes? We need to rein it back in. Well, we'll see what happens next. I don't know. I'm going to check the protest schedule for this weekend, see what's going on here in the nation's capital. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Don't be strangers. We'll be back. This is Land. That ain't just speculation. And for now, I hope you all have a good night.